Welcome to Rip 'em Another, brought to you by One Touch Entertainment. I am the Mack Daddy Jimmy Ripp, your host with the most, and I'm trying to reach you coast to coast. Hey, give me a break. I'm a one-take specialist. I never re-record, edit, or go back and fix it later. I am what I am. You take it or leave it. If you have any comments, questions, emails, suggestions, just email us. You know the address.
I'm not the one your mama warned you about, but the one she tried to take away from you. I am the heat machine. I am the straw that stirs the drink. I am the highlight reel with sex appeal, the one and only Twisted Hill. I am half the size, but twice the man, and I'm still talking trash. I am the Mack Daddy, Jimmy Ripp. Alright, first of all, I want to thank myself for that introduction. Welcome to this episode of Rip 'em a New One. I'm your host, Jimmy Ripp. I want to welcome audio track when I was recently a guest on Smart Mark Radio. If you want any information about Smart Mark Radio, you can find them on Facebook, or you can always email me at RIP, that's RIPP 2011 at yahoo.com. So right now we're going to take you to the audio track of when I was a guest at Smart Mark Radio right now. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be back, alright?
Log Talk Radio.
Smart Mark Radio. Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to another broadcast of Smart Mark Radio, the only award-winning news source on Blog Talk Radio. Stay tuned as Jared J. Hawkins, along with the star of the show, your role model, Rick Lee, and myself, the hitman, Tony T, as we interview wrestling superstars and bring you news from all federations. And now, live from the Smart Mark Studio 69, located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, here's the founder of Smart Mark Radio, Jared J. Hawkins.
Okay, we do want to apologize for being a little bit late here. We did have technical difficulties thanks to Blog Talk Radio, but we are on the air.
Right. We are on the air. I want to just say, before you even get started with any introductions, that we do want to apologize not only to our guest, but to all the people out there listening that the show started 5 minutes late. That's not our fault. We were trying our asses off to get on this thing, but unfortunately sometimes we get dealt with unprofessionalism, and it pisses me off like crazy, and I'm not afraid to speak my mind. Anyway, before we get started, is there anything that you guys need to throw into that?
No, you said it all, Rick.
Good. Well, then today on our show, we have a guy who claims to be the most hated man on the West Coast. And you know what? I like that in him because I'm probably the most hated man on the East Coast, and I can care less. He is not also known as the Crack Daddy. Now, I got to ask you about this in a second, but he's the Crack Daddy himself, Jimmy Ripp. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
It isn't the Crack Daddy, you smart mouth. It's the Mack Daddy.
The Mack Daddy. Now, see, somebody sent me a thing and said to call you the Crack Daddy, and so I'm calling you the Crack Daddy. Am I being misinformed? Because if so, I'm a little pissed off myself because I like what you do, and I didn't even want to call you the Crack Daddy if you weren't.
Well, that's some nice little fun name that fans made up for me about 10 years ago.
Okay, I'm going to tell you
so
why.
They just think it's funny to call me that.
I'm going to tell you what. Next time they call you the Crack Daddy, because I apologize. I even put it on the damn poster that it's the Crack Daddy because they said, the promoter said, don't forget to introduce him as the Crack Daddy because that's his moniker. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I put it on there, and then I'm thinking to myself, well, that's kind of stupid. But then I started thinking, well, maybe dude's known for, sticking his boot up someone's crack. You know what I'm saying? So I figured maybe it makes sense after all.
No, the problem is
Rick, you really know how to talk your way out of shit, don't you?
Of course I do.
Hey. That's a redeeming trait about him, too. Let me tell you something. When I first debuted in wrestling, the reason that these people have a problem with me is because I stand 5'9", and I only weighed 145 pounds, yet I'd whoop anybody's ass that tried to step to me. And they didn't like that. They didn't understand how somebody my size could take on anybody and still talk shit afterwards. So they decided that the Mack Daddy wasn't suiting. They wanted to call me the Crack Daddy, suggesting that that's what I do.
Well, you know what? First of all, anybody that doesn't like people that are short, first of all, I'm 5'9", so, and I'm a little heavier than you, but, still in that same vicinity. And anybody that doesn't like people that are that short need to remember that Bruce Lee was only 5'6", and he only weighed 130 pounds. And I don't see anybody back in the 70s slapping him around.
That was everybody's problem. They couldn't get anybody who was man enough to slap me around either.
Damn,
I'm a little bit different. I weigh about 205 pounds now, so I ain't exactly the little guy that they used to try to push around.
Well, and I was looking at the picture, and I was just about to actually say that. I was like, the picture that we have, like, of you look like you're pretty well ripped for being only 145 pounds, but you just answered my next question, so I guess that explains it. Okay, so let's actually get into a little bit about you before we go into any storylines or anything like that. What exactly got you into wrestling?
Well, the same old cliche line everybody else says. I watched it as a kid. I had heroes. I didn't have no heroes. I just wanted to beat people up. And I was so small, I always got pushed around. Though I figured, when I got older, I'd get into a position and into a profession where that got to be what I got to do, was push people around and beat them up. Well, I was still the same small guy, but I found out that I was tough as nails anyway and had a heart that nobody could match. So I still went into wrestling. I was too violent for MMA, I guess. That's what they tried to tell me. I had too much of a bad attitude and was too violent for regular freestyle martial arts. I was in boxing, but I hurt somebody and gave them brain damage, and they didn't want me to box anymore. So I went into wrestling, and the rest is history. But I remember the first time I walked into I trained at APW boot camp in Hayward, California. And I remember the first time I walked in the building in 1997. I walked in there and said, I want to sign up to learn to wrestle. And the trainer at the time was Manny Fernandez, the Raging Bull. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh, yeah.
But
former tag team
a lot of
champion
people don't. They don't really give a damn about overweight fat guys who can't really do anything but drink beer. But, he sat there, looked at me and said, you want to be a pro wrestler? Well, not as long as I live, you'll never be one. And I said, oh, yeah? We'll see about that. And 2 years later, I defied him and anybody else who thought I wasn't going to make it 1 week into boot camp. So I debuted at Swiss Park in Newark in California and came out there slapping high fives with all the fans and everything, trying to be all nice and everything. And I heard things like, go home, E.T. I heard everything, and then I even heard, for the first time, them call me Crack Daddy. So the very next show, I decided to let them know how I really felt about them. And after that, I had to be escorted to my car because there were people waiting in the parking lot to beat the crap out of me.
Yeah, that's
I found it hilarious.
fun.
I didn't want an escort. I wanted them all to try. But
Damn right.
the promoter wouldn't let that happen. So
yeah, there's this little thing called lawsuits. It doesn't do well with people. Okay, actually, I was looking through a lot of the people that you train with, and you actually work with Mike Modest, Christopher Daniels, the American Dragon.
I put them all over. I put them all over. Christopher Daniels, Mike Modest, he was my trainer. I have a lot of respect for him, a whole lot of respect for him.
Yeah, who doesn't?
I worked with Tony Jones, Vic Grimes, Crash Holly, God rest his soul. American Dragon, yeah. I even worked at Battle Royal where I put John Cena over. I let him press me and throw me 2 rows deep. That was when he was known as the Prototype.
Prototype. Yep. He's actually on the APW training tape called the Ultimate Training Video.
Oh, yeah,
or
they put guys like him on there, of course.
Yeah, of course they do. That way they can...
Not the guys like me who put them over.
Now, you mentioned Crash Holly, and actually, after reviewing some of the stuff, that's kind of who you reminded me of, is a Crash Holly, where you're a littler dude, but you don't give a damn.
Oh, yeah. I can tell you a good quick story about Crash Holly. That's a story I'm really fond of. One night, I was at the gym working out late. I stayed at the gym all the time when I was in training. I was there putting up chairs, putting up, TV monitors, cleaning, always, like, anything I could do to pay my dues quicker, I was doing it. I, lived there pretty much for that first 2 years. And one night, Mike Modest, Crash Holly, Donovan Morgan, and Benny Massaro were all there hanging out and drinking. And I actually made the mistake of asking them if they had time, would they work out with me in the ring? Well, you don't do that to pros when you're just a beginner. And they taught me that lesson, that you don't do that to pros. Crash Holly climbed in the ring and said, I'll show you some stuff. And he took me from one end of the ring to the other, whooping my ass. But when it was done, I got up, shook his hand, and said, thank you for teaching me all you did. After about halfway through, I realized he was just punking me. He wasn't really trying to show me anything. And notwithstanding that, I still thanked him for taking the time to get in the ring with me. And after that, guys like Modest and everybody showed me a lot more respect because of my size and the fact that I stood there, took it, and didn't complain.
Well, the funny thing is that's what happened with Crash when he was training. A lot of people didn't realize that, but Crash Holly and well, now he's known as Runt from the Dudleys, but was Spike Dudley.
Yeah, Spike Dudley.
A lot of them guys, they got in the business and they were treated just rough in training, and I mean, you know, different training camps, but just both of them treated really rough, and both of them pretty much they don't give a damn. I mean, look at the bumps that both of them guys would take. I mean,
yeah.
Shit.
I mean, if
you know?
There was an awards banquet one year when I was with APW, and one of the categories was Best Finishing Move. And there was 8 guys nominated for the category. 7 of them, the video of their finishing move was me taking it. So, you know,
that's a compliment.
Like I said, I've been press slammed and throw five rows deep under the hard gymnasium floor. I took the Death Valley driver from Mike Modest up the top rope, even. And a couple of Big Grimes finishing moves that he still uses, he practiced them on me, like a tilt-the-world choke slam. If you can't visualize that, he had me in a press slam, spun my legs, and then choke slammed me.
I'm actually glad you brought up. I'm glad you brought up the finishing holds and stuff from people from there, especially Mike Modest, because I don't know if you realize this, but WWE has stolen so many moves from Mike Modest alone that it sickens me. I mean,
I love Mike Modest, and he's an innovator, and he was a brilliant worker, and everything. But some credit of some of his finishing moves do have to go to Benny Massaro. They were given to him by Benny Massaro. So yes, I watched them use what was called in APW. Benny Massaro used is called the bitch slap. Fit Finley used it in WCW for a while. That's having the guy over your shoulders, hooking his neck, and dropping him on his back of his head. That was called the bitch slap.
Exactly.
He gave that move to Mike Modest to use, and Mike Modest started using that in Japan, and it went crazy for it.
Mm-hmm. It was on one of the wrestling documentaries that we promoted last year, and they were actually showing where the guys in the back were talking about how it was going to get stolen, and it was stolen. In the taping of the movie Beyond the Mat, Mike Modest's tryout with Tony Jones, he used a bitch slap on him for the finish. And at least 2 different guys in the back watching the monitor going, I'm stealing that move. You know, while Jim Ross was standing there, Roland Alexander was standing there watching the trial match. A couple of the boys that were watching that were saying, I'm going to steal that move, I'm going to steal that move, I'm going to steal that one. Like almost every spot they did. I remember that, and that's probably why they were saying it. Now it makes sense. I remember that exact freaking moment in that DVD. So, like, right now,
I was actually on that DVD as well. You can see a couple highlights of me wrestling Big Grimes in the beginning when they're talking about the training schools. Yeah, you see one spot where I jump up on his back and I'm choking him, and he just flips me over his head out of the ring. And then another one where I do a 450 off the top rope onto him onto the floor. And another one where he catches me in midair and slams me into the wall. But we had a rematch later on in a hardcore match with Falls Count Anywhere. It was kind of like they were trying to duplicate the Falls Count Anywhere match that made him and Crash Holly get their shot in WWE. And I couldn't come close to duplicating what Crash Holly did with Big Grimes. It was flattering for them to think I could, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. One thing I got to ask you.
I know how to be modest. I know what my limitations were.
Well, I think we all know our limitations. It's just some of us take it to the edge a little bit. One thing I got to ask you,